Welcome to the Two Blokes Chatting radio show on 94.7 The Pulse. Music, interviews, news, and, well, Two Blokes Chatting. Now, here are the two blokes.
We're going back to 1979. That's a band called Jojo Zepp and the Falcons, featuring the dulcet tones of a chap called Joe Camilleri. Fast forward to 2021, and he has released with his band, the Black Sorrows, his 50th career album. It's called St George's Road. What better person to talk about that album? The great man himself, Joe Camilleri. Welcome to the Two Blokes Chatting radio show.
Oh, good morning. How are you?
Doing very well, thank you. You've got Neil here. The other one you spoke to was Rob. Congratulations, firstly, on the release of a new album. 50 albums, that must mean you're over 50 years of age.
Yeah. It's just you just get on it and you don't think about anything. But it turned out that it's my 50th. I wasn't thinking like that. I was just trying to write a fistful of songs and take him into the studio.
So I'm fascinated by the process. So you sit down one day, whenever it was, and said, I'd like to start writing a fistful of songs and put them on an album. How do you start?
Well, it's kind of like that, but it's kind of my daily bread, you know. It's kind of like I just go to the guitar or piano, or I just go and do things like that. And then hopefully there's a big default in everything that I say. That, though, you know, it's not very often you walk away from sort of the lounge room or wherever it is you're doing it, and you've come up with something that's really valuable to you. Sometimes you get an idea, and then there's a process of elimination. And before you know it, you've got a collection of songs, and if they like each other, you can write a whole bunch of songs that sometimes they just don't like each other. It's kind of like family members. And I had, me and Nick wrote these songs over about an 8-month period. We had about 22 songs to choose from, and we recorded 16, released 11. And that's how it kind of falls most of the time, you know.
Joe, you made an interesting comment there about songs that don't mesh. So is your method because you're a bit of a storyteller, and it looks like this new album does that again. So is it a case of having the idea of the lyric and then finding the music to match, or do you go the other way? You you write some music that you really like and then find the words to match that?
Okay, well, let's go back a little bit further. Me and Nick are a two-headed insect, right? So he's a little bit lazier than me, but I need him more than he needs me, and he knows that. It means I've got to work harder, and I've got to do the nuts and bolts. So normally I give him what you call a dummy lyric, and a melody, you know. So my job is to sort of write the melody and get a feeling together. So and then he rejects that like John West, right? he rejects that and says, "No, you're an idiot. This is what you got to do." And then it comes back to me, and then I have to sort of try to place his idea. And I love working with him. You know, it's joyous. We have a lot of fun. You know, nothing's sacred. If he likes something, he uses it. If he doesn't, he doesn't. And that's fair enough. And if I like something that he's written, I won't let him change it. And he says, "You can't do that." And I said, "I kind of can."
Yeah. So actually, out of that teaming, you're more the creative one, and he just polishes up your ideas.
Well, he kind of tries. He tries to make me intellectual.
I do the same, Joe. I've been carrying Rob now for some period of time on this radio program,
and I'm a very heavy load.
So take it.
We all know that there's always, you know, and I keep saying to him, "Hey, listen, Nicky, you're You're only as good as your weakest link.
Yeah, we know that one too.
Yeah.
So take us back to where it all started. Presumably when you picked up an instrument for the first time, did you think that you would have music as a career? I mean, you've clearly become one of Australia's best known and most popular entertainers. It must have been, it must have started somewhere.
Well, it's funny that, isn't it? Well, I'm one of 10 kids. I just needed someone to recognise me. Maybe that was the whole thing. No, I didn't. My cousin had a guitar, and I thought, I could. It can't be that hard. I've seen Elvis on TV, and it was really difficult. Your hands were sore. I gave in really quickly, and it was just that I could sing the songs of the day. Like today, I couldn't sing the songs of today. I don't know where they're going. I don't know.
I don't think they do they?
Well, they know a lot about the chords, and they kind of sing them all in about 2 bars. But anyway, that's for the youth of today. But I was just a kid, so I was singing what was on the radio, and radio was king, and we took it from there. So it was as simple as that, and then one thing led to another, and I'm thinking, it's a part-time thing. Then I got a job. It wasn't until from the 65 to about 69, it was all art bands, because you're hanging around with those sort of people. So there was no money involved, because if you got any money, you just employed someone else, So we had, living in the Double-Decker Brothers, for instance, was a 13-piece outfit, right? I don't think you can split $40 with 13 people. But, so you got, but there was horn players, ballerinas, poets. There was kind of, there was fluff on the side, which was me. There was all kinds of different things, storytellers, everything, And so we would do these sort of shows, and they were fun. And then you just went and dealt with your daily bread. I was working pulling dead animals out of pens in the railways. That was my job. Wasn't much fun, I got to tell you, and it stunk like high heaven, but that was the gig I had at the time. And then one thing led to another. Got another gig that was a little bit more serious, less people, more money. There was at least $5 a show that we could tick up, and then it sort of led me to a band called the Polacco Brothers, and that was an art band, but it was a popular one. We didn't make many records, but it was a very popular one, and that's when it all changed, because they wanted me. Daddy Cool had broken up, Rock Granite had broken up, another band from Sydney's broken up, and they're all in Melbourne. They needed, to my belief now, this is what they say, they needed an idiot at the front and that was me. So I became the lead singer, which turned out to be JoJo Zepp and the Falcon.
So the JoJo Zepp thing was, as much as anything, a character more so than anything else. Yeah,
but it was. I got this all of a sudden started to play with A-grade players, and I hated. They used to call me the Orange Boy. That was terrible to me. And but until I started writing songs, then I realised that if you can write songs, you can make money while you sleep. Not that I was kind of interested in that, but that was kind of the byproduct of writing songs. And they were too busy they were too busy doing other things, and they wrote songs too. But I just happened to write the right song, couple of songs for the band. And I had a different feeling, I was coming from another place, and I wrote those songs, So Young, Shape I'm In, Hit and Run, and a few of those songs that got the band, catapulted the band into sort of somewhere else,
Joe, I sense your tongue's in your cheek a little bit when talking about your fellow musicians, but through Neil's connections and touching on publicists like your own, we've had the privilege of meeting on radio a lot of Australian music icons, and what I sense amongst them, which was sort of a little bit surprising, but really enjoyable, was the love and respect and admiration you have for each other. That vintage, the Daryl Braithwaites and Ross Wilsons that we've spoken to of recent times. You just got this great respect and rapport that you can come together and share your skills. Is that one of the real privileges of your career?
I kind of love it. I had a text yesterday because it was my 50th was released yesterday, and he was just so generous, and he's such he was such a sweet man, Daryl, for instance. I'll just talk about Daryl for a second. He always, even in his heyday, he'd always come and talk to me, and even the Sherbet days, and we'd always have a nice little chat. He was always a gentleman. He wasn't affected by anything, Sure, he was of course, to this day, he's always, doesn't matter what he says, Daryl Braithwaite, King of Pop 3 times. And I got one of these days, and I don't know what to say. I can't say. I think King of Pop, trumps, having 4 arias. What is, the best I can do is I put my aria in the fridge and open it occasionally. Yep. Hello.
Plus, you've had 3 names. You were Joey Vincent for a while, weren't you? And now, of course, Joe Camilleri.
I was kind of a whole bunch of different geezers, the Melbourne unknown.
Like Johnny LaPiccolo. But Ross was a big key, and we all shared a joy, because we've been playing the same arenas, at different times or together for a lot of years. I'm 73. I think Ross is a tiny bit older. He's getting shorter, but don't tell him that. And Daryl, I think he might be a year younger than me. So we kind of know, the peaks and valleys of our career. We've all pretty much had to do things that we didn't think we needed to do, but because when you're on, you think it's never going to end. And then one day it's gone, and it's not personal or anything. It's just people move on to other things, It's like a funeral parade, rock and roll. There's always room for one more. So you're getting, so it gets mighty crowded. Like, for instance, this record, I finished this record 2 days before the pandemic finished, and Peter Solly was, he lived a couple of hours out in New York, and it already hit there, and he was finding it difficult to get back, even though it hadn't even started here. And so I've had this album for 16 months waiting to find the right time, and there's never the right time. You just got to, sometimes that opportunity just kind of, that window closes, But here we are, sort of, and it's finally out. I'm really excited by it. This is funny, isn't it? I'm really excited at 73. I hope I can be able to say that.
I don't think anyone at 73 should be excited.
Absolutely, you should be. So I'm desperately trying to remember the gentleman's name. Jeff Burston, that played with the
Jeff Burston.
Yeah, played with the Sorrows. He, I know, was involved in a football club not very far from St George's Road. The name of this album that is being St George's Road, iconic Melbourne thing. Is the Black Sorrows as iconically Melbourne as any other band in Australia is associated with a town, do you reckon?
I think we are to a degree. I think let's look at it this way: if we have a hit, we're Melbourne. If we if we don't, who cares?
Yeah, a bit like Dragon being Kiwis or Australians, depending upon how they're travelling.
There's a bit of that, and it is, I mean, St George's Road is a tribute to our departed, the kiss goodbye and all that, the long goodbye, whatever you want to call it. And it is that road. It is but it sounded nice. Sometimes you can't get a good line. It was down St. George's Road when I saw him for the last time. They were carrying his load. And it was a really nice way of putting I'm going to miss you.
Joe, one of the other characters that I didn't mention that we interviewed recently was Russell Morris, and the question asked what was the favourite song you have written. His answer was the last one that I wrote. Do you have a favourite amongst yours, or do you still think it's to come?
It's always to come. I've got a song. I've got me and Nick have demoed, or I do the demos. He's kind of pretty lazy.
You have mentioned that.
I do all the nuts and bolts, right? So I play all the instruments on the thing. I do it, and which is fine. It's fine. I enjoy it. I enjoy it, and you find things. You get a skill, not necessarily for playing live, but you get a skill, and it's kind of naive. My bass playing is what I call naive playing. I could join a punk band, I reckon, pretty good with my bass playing. So it's pretty much always what's coming up is kind of what makes it exciting, because it's a road you haven't travelled on, or less travelled.
Joe, this week, we're 2 weeks away from Grand Final Day. This week I saw some old footage from an old countdown show, I think it was, Grand Final Day. You and a lot of other Australian music royalty running around on the MCG. You in a South Melbourne football jumper.
No, I've still got that,
Are you passionate about, is that your sort of release from the music? Russell Morris certainly loves his Tigers and is still attached to them. Do you have releases from music? He's
been really happy for a couple of years.
He has.
Unbearable, I thought the word was.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I don't feel that. But I remember that day really well, because I was, I don't follow football in the same way that I used to, but I still have that jumper, and that was the only jumper that was left, because I barracked for Collingwood. And in fact, I was punished, because originally I was living in Carlton, and I was barracking as a 7-year-old. I was selling, you could do this in these days, it was child slavery. They just put you out on the corner of Lygon Street and you're selling I think it was the Argus or something like that, if that existed, And there was might have been a penny or something for a paper then. And my brother, and I was, maybe I was barring for Melbourne, I think, and my brother was barring for Collingwood. So he gave me a little tickle up, and I was, and he said, you have to barrack for Collingwood. So it just became that, when you're one of 10, there's brutality. Okay, there's not, it's joyous later on because you forget about the brutality. But, when you're sleeping top to tail, for about 7 or 8 years, it's kind of pretty, it gets pretty, it's pretty nasty, But, and he was so into Collingwood, my brother Frank, and I ended up barracking for Collingwood, and that game, I think Collingwood played that and lost that. I think I did countdown that day. I think we did. We went out. I slipped on my ass. I tried to kick the ball, missed the ball, fell over. Every time I see it, I say, "You idiot!" And it was really wet. So it's amazing how those guys can keep running without falling over. But and we left. I think me and Wilbur left to go to the studios in Ripon Lee, and I think we might have lost by 5 points, and we were like 10 goals up at half time or something. I'm not sure if that was the game. But
I think it might have been the famous Wayne Harms bash from the boundary line game where
79, I reckon.
79, yeah.
Was it Collingwood?
Yeah, Collingwood and Carlton. Carlton won by 5 points in a little controversy.
Talk about sort of talk about the Judas kiss.
Joe, you talk about the musical instruments you play. I'm one of those people who love saxophone in rock. You play it. You mentioned Wilbur Wilde. He also does this. Do you still really enjoy getting on the end of the sax?
Yeah, I do. I kind of, more so now, seeing, over the last 16 months, I've always been not that it matters, but it came by ear. I didn't, Wilbur is a great player. He's got a great ear, but he also went to the con. Knows a lot of stuff, I know nothing. I just pick it up and sort of, I've been doing this for, 40 years. Just pick it up and just kind of try to navigate a melody inside the track, right? Which is, and the great thing about rock and roll, you don't have long to speak, That's also, so you get 12 bars, 16 bars if you're lucky, and or an outro. Nobody cares about the outro because DJs are just pulling, they're pulling the lever down and moving on, and too much grazing, and so you get a little 12. So I was able to do that, and the thing between me and him at the time in the Falcons was great because he had knowledge and he knew a lot of things, and in some weird way he lifted me up, and I had a thing that he didn't have, which I really, it sort of made. It was a good fall for each other, so that was great. But in the last 16 months, I've because of the lockdown and because of the uncertainties, one of the things that I do for my brain is I'm learning about playing music, and what I did realise is I knew it, but it didn't enter my head that it was. It's a language, if you're playing jazz music, it's a language. It's like, and rock is a language, so sometimes they don't sort of talk to each other because one's French and one, Russian, so it's kind of as weird as that. And so I'm getting a lot of joy out of it, and I'm getting a lot of joy out of learning things, and in some weird way it's actually helping my songwriting because when you listen to those really great songs, that whether it's it's just beautiful melodies from the 40s and 50s, and the way that they place their chords, and Rodgers and Hammerstein, and all those sort of people, and you kind of say, wow, that's a really interesting sort of progression, because once again, generation after generation, things get cut, The rock and roll thing was around a 12-bar blues progression mainly, or a 1-6-5 or something like that, whatever you want to call it. So I'm learning about all these things accidentally because you just got to keep your brain active.
Well, Joe, you talk of the joy that you're bringing yourself at the moment, and you have done that for well over 40 years for the rest of us, so it's only fair that you cop some of that back. This new album that was released yesterday is called St. George's Road. The first track, or the first single taken from it, is a song called Livin' with an apostrophe, so there's no G on there, by the way. Livin' Like Kings. We're going to play that as we say farewell and thank you. You want to tell us a little bit about the song before we play it?
Well, it's a little bit of Pulp Fiction, It's about three palookas that end up in Palookaville, and pretty much just a little heist that happens. And of course, they bring loot back, but they get double crossed. One goes to jail, and of course they're waiting for that person to come out, and then they're back in Palookaville.
Okay.
Well, Joe, I think we found out why you still get excited at 73 from listening this morning. There's still a lot more to come. I imagine really appreciate your time, and best of luck with St. George's Road.
Thank you so much, gentlemen.
Great to have you on board. Here are the Black Sorrows with their brand new single. You can buy it in all good record stores and probably on download as well. Joe Camilleri, thanks for joining us on the Two Blokes Chatting radio show.
Cheers, boys.
There he is, Joe Camilleri, an absolute legend of Australian music. And here are their brand new single. It is called Livin' Like Kings.